The world's most powerful man and the world's most powerful woman had a kid. You know where this is going. That's right. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to talk about Spider Kid, the least requested and most controversial member of the marvelous Spider-Man canon. For those of you who don't know, Spider-Man and Mary Jane Watson had a kid named Mayday or May Parker. Depending on the continuity, she was born with spider powers like her father. However, she did not have a spider sense. This made her extremely reckless, but also made her a lot more powerful than Peter Parker ever was because, unlike her father, she could actually fly thanks to her super strength and agility. She also had super speed, but since she couldn't control it, she was incredibly clumsy. As for how she got her powers, there's actually two different origin stories. In one of them, she inherited her powers from her father, just like in the comics. But in another version of events, she was bitten by a radioactive spider just like her dad before he ever became Spider-Man. Both versions of the story have their differences, but they both end in the same way. In order to keep her safe, Spider-Man and MJ sent her to Spidey Heaven, aka Spidey Island, to live with her Aunt May, who was also Peter Parker's aunt, which is a little weird, but whatever. While living with her aunt, Mayday attended Spidey High, a school for young superheroes where she was the only student with spider powers. Because of this, she would often be bullied by her classmates. Something that Peter never experienced because he was usually the only student at Midtown High with spider powers, so yeah, you can probably tell that Mayday has some pretty big shoes to fill. In order to cope with all the stress of being a superhero, attending high school and being the daughter of two famous people, Mayday would often turn to Peter for advice, especially since her parents were usually too busy fighting with the Sinister Six or whatever to actually parent her. Since Mayday didn't have a spider sense, she would often get into trouble or get hurt. And whenever this happened, Peter would be there to save the day. Sometimes he would even don the costume and cape and fight alongside his daughter, which was really cool. After graduating from Spidey High, Mayday went on to become a fashion designer and photographer. I guess having a cool costume and a tragic backstory made her really into fashion. Personally, I think it's really cool that Mayday chose to use her powers in such a unique way. Unlike her father, who always stuck to being a photographer, Mayday chose to be a fashion designer, which is a much more creative field. Now, as you may have guessed, Spider-Man 2099 is not the only animated show to feature Spider Kid. She also appeared in the spectacular Spider-Man TV show from the 90s. However, this version of Mayday is a bit different. In this version, she gets her powers when her father is mutated by a new version of the Carnage symbiote. Unlike her other incarnations, she does not inherit her powers from her father, but instead she becomes the new host of the Carnage symbiote after it leaves Venom and seeks out her father for help. She eventually bonds with the symbiote and becomes a Dark Mirror version of Spider-Man. So yeah, while she may not be the most well-known Spider-Man character, she's still pretty important to the Spider-Man canon, although I personally prefer the animated version. What do you guys think? Which version of Spider Kid is better? The slightly annoying but ultimately heroic daughter of Peter Parker and MJ, or the Dark Mirror version of Spider-Man who is consumed by the Carnage symbiote? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, since we've already talked about how Spider-Man got his powers and who his worst enemies are, I think it's time we talk about who his best friends are. So join me next time as we discuss the Human Torch and Iceman, two original members of the X-Men. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos. And as always, I'll see you next time.